A House of Dynamite from acclaimed filmmaker Kathryn Bigelow has just been released in theatres, and the film is a tense political thriller about what happens when an unidentified missile is launched towards the United States. Government and military officials across different narrative branches race against time to understand who is behind the attack, whether to retaliate, and how to prevent catastrophe. The narrative unfolds over a matter of minutes and is structured through multiple perspectives, from White House staffers monitoring incoming threats to operational commanders tasked with intercepting the missile, showing both the procedural and emotional pressure on those making life or death decisions. So in this explained analysis, I'm going to be breaking down the film, the ending, and giving you my review. There will be spoilers in this video, so if you haven't watched the film yet, then I would recommend checking it out before watching my analysis. Before I get into it though, if you want to see more on upcoming releases like A House of Dynamite, then don't forget to support this upload by giving it a like rating and subscribing to the channel. But without further ado, let's dive into my explained video for Kathryn Bigelow's A House of Dynamite. So A House of Dynamite begins in Alaska at Fort Greely. Major Daniel Gonzalez and his team are monitoring the skies, and at first it seems like a usual day. But then they detect an unidentified intercontinental ballistic missile that has slipped through early warning systems. To begin with, it's ambiguous whether it's a test or a real attack. Meanwhile, in Washington DC, Captain Olivia Walker, played by Rebecca Ferguson, who works in the White House NORAD-linked Situation Room, is going about her day too. She has personal concerns at home with her son being ill, but when the alert comes in, everything changes. Her team begins to try to track the missile, including where it launched from, its trajectory, and whether it will be intercepted. As the missile's path becomes clearer, they calculate there's roughly 18 to 19 minutes until impact, and the likely target is Chicago. Panic begins to spread among various government and military agencies as they scramble to figure out what to do. One of the first responses is to try missile defense using the Alaska base, launching anti-ballistic countermeasures. These efforts fail as the missile is moving too fast and the defensive systems aren't sufficient enough. As said in the film, it's like hitting a bullet with a bullet. Meanwhile, high up in the command chain, General Anthony Brady argues forcefully that retaliation or counterstrike should be part of the response, not just deflection or diplomatic options. There is tension between him and people who are more cautious or who are desperately seeking confirmation of who launched the missile. And Deputy National Security Advisor Jake Barrington becomes a prominent voice in this. He and others are trying to gather intelligence, trying to reach out to known foreign advisors, for example a North Korea expert named Anna Park. They also try to contact Moscow themselves to see whether Russia is involved, but Russia officials deny responsibility and warn that any US attack could provoke retaliation. There are satellite communications and intelligence gaps that make attribution too difficult. Furthermore, in another thread of the film, the Secretary of Defense Reed Baker has personal stakes as his daughter Caroline lives in Chicago. As the threat becomes more certain, he attempts to arrange for her evacuation, or at least ensure she is safe. He fails, and overcome with grief and guilt during his evacuation, he commits suicide by jumping from the Pentagon roof. This is just one of the emotionally intense moments, throwing into sharp relief how personal this abstract threat becomes to everyone involved. Simultaneously, we watch how Idris Elba's president is further alerted. At first, he is somewhere removed from everything happening, being at a basketball event with children. He has to be evacuated and transported to a secure location, and he is accompanied by Lieutenant Commander Robert Reeves, who carries around the nuclear football. Reeves walks him through available options, plans with names or codes. So the president is faced with choosing whether to retaliate, whether to assume responsibility of an attack, and whether to risk a broader catastrophe. And all throughout this, we also follow FEMA official Kathy Rogers, who is being moved. She and others evacuate to bunkers, with some people seeing this as necessary and others seeing it as abandonment. These moments serve to humanize the response of those in charge and even those with power that are far from having full knowledge or control in a situation like this. Whether it's a focus on Walker, NORAD in Alaska, Jake Barrington, the Pentagon, or the President's perspective, all of these different narrative viewpoints are around the same time frame, and we get new details for who is making which calls, how certain options are being pressed, and what limitations there are, both technical and human. The timeline approach isn't just a gimmick, as it underlines how differently people experience crisis depending on where they sit, what information they have, and what stakes are personal. The repetition of this allows us to see overlaps under the emotion and information. For instance, the president is heard issuing orders before we ever see him on screen, and that delay builds tension and also signals something about distance. When we see him later with all the emotion he's facing, it shows that this scenario would affect everyone, between power and ground realities, between command and consequence. When we get to the ending of A House of Dynamite, the president has to make the ultimate decision. The countdown is almost over and it's clear that impact is imminent. The president, nuclear football holder Reeves, and his staff discuss the retaliation plans, and the president also tries to reach his wife, who is abroad in Africa, by phone. He seems overwhelmed, torn, aware that any choice may be catastrophic either way. As the missile enters US airspace and minutes remain, people in bunkers prepare, and evacuation efforts and emergency protocols are underway in cities. We don't get to see the president's choice, as in the final moments the screen cuts to black. We also do not see explicit confirmation of the missile striking Chicago, nor do we see whether a retaliatory strike is ordered. The ending is purposely ambiguous, highlighting that any choice in this situation is one that still ends in the same place. So at its core, A House of Dynamite is Kathryn Bigelow's most stripped down and terrifying meditation on power, uncertainty, and human fragility. The film isn't just about a possible nuclear attack, it's about what happens to the people and systems within when time, truth, and trust collapse all at once. By compressing the story into roughly 20 minutes of real time and replaying that period from several viewpoints, Bigelow exposes how individuals experience the same catastrophe. Some hang on to procedure, others to morality, and others to denial. The repetition emphasizes that knowledge is fragmented and no one ever truly knows what's happening, yet decisions of unimaginable consequence must still be made. The title A House of Dynamite becomes a metaphor for civilization itself, an intricate structure built on volatile foundations. Every part of the house, whether military, government, family, or technology, is interconnected and ready to explode from within. The characters' attempts to preserve control, whether launching defenses, consulting data, or debating retaliation, feel almost ritualistic, as if the act of procedure can hold back annihilation. But Bigelow's direction refuses catharsis, as there is no conclusive impact, no clear moral victory. The cut to black forces the audience to sit in unresolved tension, realizing that apocalypse isn't only a physical event, but a psychological one too, the moment when certainty disintegrates. In this sense, the movie isn't simply a thriller, but a moral thought experiment about modern deterrence and accountability. Bigelow suggests that the nuclear age has trapped humanity in a perpetual countdown, forever rehearsing disaster, but never able to stop it. Each official's face, each failed communication, becomes a part of a wider portrait of fear and responsibility. Therefore, the meaning of A House of Dynamite lies not in whether the bomb falls, but in the recognition that the system designed to protect us are also the very structures that could end us. The director seems interested in capturing not just that nuclear war is horrible, but how close policy, error, hubris, or institutional failure can bring us to that threshold without the world noticing until it's almost too late. For her, the film is a kind of cautionary tale about complacency in a world where annihilation may be a matter of seconds. But that was my breakdown and analysis for A House of Dynamite. Kathryn Bigelow's A House of Dynamite is a masterclass in controlled tension and moral urgency, as it's a film that grips you from its first flicker of a radar light and never lets go. Few directors can capture the intersection of power, fear and procedure like Bigelow, and here she distills those forces into a single nerve-shredding countdown. The movie's real-time pacing gives every minute an almost unbearable weight, and by replaying the same window of time from different perspectives, Bigelow transforms a geopolitical thriller into something deeply human and philosophical. The performances, particularly Idris Elba's quietly tormented president and Rebecca Ferguson's fierce yet fragile intelligence officer, ground the chaos with emotional clarity. What distinguishes this film is how Bigelow and screenwriter Noah Oppenheim interweave procedure and human fragility. While much of the movie plays like a procedural drama with mission control rooms, military command posts, intelligence briefings, and bureaucratic tension, there is also room for an emotional undercurrent. The fatigue and uncertainty of decision makers, the private anxieties they hide, and the paradox that in such extreme moments, personal vulnerabilities can influence decisions just as much as institutional protocols. The structure is what adds to all of this tension, as multiple viewpoints slowly reveal how different branches of power intersect or fail to under pressure. In doing so, Bigelow underscores how fragmented decision making can be and how delay, miscommunication, and competing mandates may prove fatal when the minutes count. Visually and tonally, the film is relatively restrained as there's no big explosion moment or mass panic on screen. Rather, the drama is concentrated in certain faces, muted rooms, comms consoles, and the tick of clocks. This restraint amplifies anxiety, and the fear comes not from what you see, but from what you imagine. The director never sensationalizes destruction, instead she invites viewers to sit inside the dread of indecision, where the stakes are not just national, but existential. Also, the final cut to black is so devastating, and it's an audacious reminder that the real explosion is psychological and not physical. So overall, A House of Dynamite feels like a deliberate return to Bigelow's strengths, with rigorous procedural storytelling like with Zero Dark 30, tension grounded in real stakes, and characters whose emotional lives are inseparable from the systems they operate within. Even if it doesn't always sustain its momentum, it remains a powerful, unsettling film that compels reflection on how fragility lies at the heart of our most destructive technologies. I can't wait to see what Kathryn Bigelow does next, because for me this was one of the most effective films of this year. But I do hope this breakdown did help some of you guys understand the film and the main details a bit better, and overall, I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on it, so don't forget to let me know down below in the comments section. For more videos on upcoming film releases like A House of Dynamite, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like rating and follow me on social media via the links in the description. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.